Now, President Bola Tinubu had presented a proposed 2025 budget of 47.90 trillion naira, aiming to restore peace, prosperity, and hope for Nigeria's future. He also spoke to the media for about an hour on Monday at his Lagos residence, and his first such media appearance since he assumed office about 18 months ago. Now, topics discussed included subsidy removal, tax bills, economic reforms, size of government, and corruption. The budget allocates 15.81 trillion naira for debt servicing and aims to reduce reliance on imported goods, and it also includes significant allocations for defense, security, infrastructure, health, education, and other sectors. The president hopes that this budget will consolidate key policies to restructure the economy and also boost human capital. Today, we're focusing on the economic outlook for 2025 on The Conversation. Let's find out with our guests here with us already. We have Dr. Taofiq Raimi, policy analyst in Abuja, and we also have Professor Simeon Nnah, public affairs analyst in Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, let me begin with Taofiq, Dr. Taofiq. Now, let's begin with a significant increase in the 2025 budget, as compared to 27.5 trillion naira in 2024. Do you think that the proposed allocations are realistically achievable?
Okay, thank you for having me. The 2025 annual budget recently proposed by His Excellency, our dear President, President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, in my mind, is achievable if certain structures are put in place. First of all, the size of this budget happens to be 49.7 trillion, a giant leap from, in terms of naira denomination, from 27.8 trillion that we have in the current outgoing year, 2024. The revenue expected for this budget is about 35 billion, at about 34 trillion naira. The budget servicing, just like you have rightly known, and the world is aware, is about 16 trillion, showing that yes, the president intends in his administration to work more to generate enough revenue through various means, existing and even new one, including the new tax bill when it is eventually approved, the production of the refining of oil, crude oil in Nigeria, will also retain a lot of foreign currency back to Nigeria. I believe also it's achievable. This revenue is also achievable if government effort from foreign direct investment materializes. You are aware that our president has been traveling, trying to woo investors from abroad. That is also very important in order to ensure that the revenue that is required to finance the budget is achieved. It's also going to be achievable if the enabling environment is created for private and public partnership to thrive in the new year. And I believe this can also be achieved if the ongoing investment in infrastructure development is also actualized. Permit me to quickly let our audience know that I did a review of budget performance between 1999 and 2024, covering the period of democratic experience that we have had. If lessons that I have discovered are also addressed or attended to by the current administration, I believe it will help in achieving the budget performance which you have asked. What did I discover? There are 4 categories of my discovery. First of all, between the 4 categories are: 1, what was the economic development based on budget instruments across this period? 2, what are the successes that were recorded? 3, what are the challenges that were confronted that didn't make budget to be achieved? Quickly, in terms of the performance, budget performance covering this period, I'm going to aggregate them for the entire period because of our time. 1, I found out that there are 4 outcomes from this category in terms of budget performance. Number 1 is that
all right, well, just before you go ahead, Doctor, just before you go ahead, let's hear from our professor, on the same question, talking about, the theme for the budget. How ambitious is this theme? Even though we know that debt servicing is 3.89% of GDP, does this point to an unsustainable debt trajectory? Let's hear from you, your thoughts. All right, let's come back to you just before we're able to reconnect with Professor Nnah. Dr. Raimi, please, can you just make your points really concise? Just, be brief with it. Sorry for cutting you off.
Okay, thank you very much. So I said that between this period of review, which is the lesson that must be learned in order to make 2025 budget realistic and achievable, just your question. Between 1999 and 2024, there were performance and economic development in the first phase, late 1999 to 2000, early 2000. Then following that period, there was slowness of budget performance. And then in recent time, including 2023 and 2024 budget, there has been an effort to improve investment in infrastructure. That was the outcome. The successes that were recorded on budget performance during this period include accountability and transparency. We have noticed that. And also there was an effort to increase investment in infrastructure or diversify our economy as well. The challenges that were confronted include, which is the area that our current government, the president and his administration must work to affect, include mismatch of allocation to project. 2, there was also high level of corruption. 3, I also discovered that there was a poor project planning and execution. 4, I also found out that there were no proper project in terms of capital project based on need assessment. So these are the areas that I believe need to be carefully checked by our current government in order to make the 2025 budget realistic.
Speak to us, on the debt servicing. Does the debt, the 3.89% of GDP, point to an unsustainable debt trajectory?
Yeah, just like I have said somewhere else, or I think on a previous program, the issue of debt servicing is important. I think the allocation that has been proposed by the president is important to observe, because it then confirms how credible we are going to be as a country before our creditor. Do not forget that this budget servicing includes, this debt servicing include both local and foreign debts that have accrued over the time. So I believe that there is no need postponing the evil days by procrastinating in paying our debt. So if we pay our debt, of course, it will reduce our total debt portfolio, and then it will also enable us to be credible as a country for further loans from our creditors. So I believe that it's a necessity. Of course, I believe that also as from 2026, the more we generate more revenue in Nigeria through economic diversification, which is another area I want our government to really focus on. Our over-dependence on mono economy, that is mono oil economy, has brought Nigeria to a point that we are not generating enough revenue as we should as a country. So if we diversify this economy, that is revenue coming from mining is one sector that can create a lot of revenue for us. Two, if we generate enough revenue from creative arts, that's our creative and art in the sector is also going to help. There are other revenue centers that we should also focus on. And I believe this should be part of the mandate, even of every ministry, every minister moving forward. And I can see signal to this high performance from a number of ministries these days. Another area by which this revenue can also increase so as to lower our eventual debt service in future budget is through public-private partnership. Not much has been achieved through this, and we cannot rely on our internally generated revenue alone to fund our budget. There is the need for more to be
Professor, can you hear me?
more
If you can
to
hear
happen.
me, since we're talking about reducing revenue generation and also making more money for the country. Now, I know that there's been a lot of talk about reducing the cabinet of the president as well as a means of saving more. And we know that President Tinubu has emphasized the importance of a large cabinet as well. He cited his decision not to reduce its size. That was during the media chat. Do you agree with his approach, or do you think that the government should consider reducing its size in order to streamline governance and also improve efficiency?
Yes, I believe that the president's position on retaining the size of his cabinet is quite in order. The reason is that I believe he has also found for himself the quantum of work that is required by this by the administration. And it's just like even in private sector, where we talk of efficiency, where we talk of appropriate size for running an organization, we also ensure that we have enough people to do enough job. What I will request, or what I expect, is that there should be increased productivity, increase efficiency, clear KPI, that is key performance indicator, and actionable given to all these ministers. Once, for instance, as a government, if a ministry also become a revenue center, and also the reforms are bringing in revenue for the government, whether through itself or through public-private partnership arrangement. If such a ministry spend 10 billion and it generate 25 billion naira, for instance, then it means it's okay. So I believe the president is in order because he must have been fully aware of the quantum of tax that should be done. Part of what he has done is to create the Ministry of Livestock, away from the original Ministry of Agriculture. If you look at that, you will see that he has also talked about the benefit from there. And I quite agree that that is also a ministry that can make Nigeria self-sufficient and even export product from livestock. And so I want to believe that his position on that is also very right. However, he must enable that, he must ensure that he measure their performance more frequently than it has been. I want to see that in the next 6 months, we can have a review of their performance. If all of them are performing like he has maintained today or in the last 3 days, fine. If not, he should just make sure that he reject the
all right. Now let's hear from Professor Nnah. I'm told that we've been able to reconnect with him. Professor, can you say something? Hello, Professor, can you speak so I know if I can hear you? All right, we still seem to be having an audio issue with him. And moving on with you, Dr. Raimi. Now, let's talk about the president's 2025 budget, prioritizing defense and security. Now, we know that security is still a major challenge in Nigeria. And do you think that this allocation is sufficient, or could the country be facing diminishing returns on security spending?
You have asked a very important question there. The budget allocation for the Ministry of Defense and Security is, to my mind, of course, the highest in the expenditure classification by the president. I think it is necessary. We need to fight insecurity frontierly. Because lack of doing so has even caused the problem that our country face, especially this year, food shortages. When our farmers won't be able to go to farm and cultivate the blessed land that we have, there would not be enough food for us. So there's no amount that is spent on fighting insecurity that is too much. For infrastructure, I've also noticed that it has increased budget allocation for infrastructure. We need to develop more of our infrastructure in order to create enabling environment, reduce cost of doing business for businesses to thrive. Even the foreign direct investment I mentioned earlier, when they want to come to Nigeria, they will look at our level of infrastructure, whether it can support their business. So it's important that that sector is also taken care of. He also increased the amount allocated for student loan within the Ministry of Education budget. That is laudable. Our children, if we do not educate our today's children, there won't be future for our country. The healthcare also has a prominence, and I want to believe that there must be enough allocation for agriculture. The bill is currently before the National Assembly. I want to ask them, when they are reviewing the bill, they should look at how we can support the Ministry of Livestock, we can support the Ministry of Agriculture far more, even every other ministry, including Ministry of Mining. They all need our attention so that we can have more performance across this sector. The purpose of budget should be how to improve the standard of living of people. If a budget cannot deliver increased standard of living of people, then it does not make much sense. And it's until when we allocate the right amount to those sectors that are priority.
If you can hear me, speaking of improving the standard of living for people, now I know you did touch a bit on agriculture, and the budget says that it aims to boost agriculture and also reduce reliance on food imports. And we know what is actually going on in the economy today, and how people are finding it difficult to actually eat 3 square meal. Now, is this a feasible goal, especially given Nigeria's historical struggles with agricultural productivity and also security concerns in rural areas, and especially in the northeast and in the northwest?
Okay, earlier today, I was listening to a news item where the Minister of State for Defense was reported to have said that the President has mandated them very recently, perhaps this week, to eliminate, using his word, eliminate insecurity, banditry by 2025, which is next year. I believe if this goal is not just mere political statement, if this goal is pursued to reality, that would then return our people back to farming, and then we can have food sufficiency. It is true, the pains that every one of us, and nobody, including public sector, private sector, every citizen is going through the struggle of food insufficiency or high inflation, especially this year. That must not repeat itself next year. Because, like I said, the goal of budget as an instrument, it should be for economic development, it should be to alleviate poverty, it should be to create more jobs for our people, it should be to increase, to provide social amenities, it should be to provide infrastructure that makes the standard of life of our people to be better. So I think the President has given the right direction. And this directive, one thing I also want to add is that most of these should also have timeline. Within 3 months, you must achieve 30% reduction in insecurity. In another 3 months, making it 6 months, you must, the level of insecurity, maybe you name the insecurity, banditry, and the other types, must be 60%. In another 3 months, in 1 year, which is next year, the president must make it actionable that for the security sector to know what they are pursuing. We should not just be throwing money into this sector repeatedly every year without really being able to assess the level of achievement and then repeating it. Of course, I know that security issue or insecurity issue is a work in progress, but at least we must have milestone for us to really determine how much of progress we have made. It is possible, but it must be scalable, it must be time-bound, and it must be measurable, and there must be punishment for those that are not keeping to meeting these targets. Those are the things to do. There must be policy reforms to achieving this. There must be clear mandate to these people to be able to achieve their goal.
Let's see if we've been able to reconnect with Simon. Simon, can you hear me? Hello, Professor Nnah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, finally. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, so let me just go ahead with your question. Now, we've actually said quite a lot and you've missed out on so much, but you can feel free to give us an overview of what your thought is on the whole budget and the president's media chat. But, majorly, we want you to speak on the ongoing political and economic challenges. And if you believe that a one-year term for elected officials, as some have suggested, would actually improve governance and reduce delays inherent in Nigeria's political cycle.
Thank you very much. I have been an advocate for president and the governors. The reason is that these their 2 terms, you will discover that governance is just the first one year. The second year is politicking. Already, they are politicking for 2027. And that is what they do year in, year out. So it is expedient that we look at one tenure of maybe 6 years, or 6 years, so that what president gets I slightly disagree with the other guests. Look at this budget. Now,
well, we stopped hearing you, Professor. We really hoped that the connection was fixed, but well, maybe next time. And but we'll continue with you, Dr. Raimi. Professor was saying he disagrees with you, but he didn't get the chance to actually, say what he disagrees on. But then please go ahead and speak on the question that I asked him, and that's about, the one-term, talking about the one-year term for elected officials, as some have actually suggested. Do you think this is a good move?
I disagree with one term for elected officers in Nigeria. The reason is that when you say one term of 6 years or one term of 5 years, I think they propose one term of 6 years. Let's even stay by that. You will find out that especially at presidential or governorship level, that's executive level, for me, I believe that the opportunity given for a second term in our current constitution enables a serious administration, a serious government, if it's elected, to have a short-term plan for its administration, medium-term and long-term plans. For using only 4 years can at best achieve for you a medium-term development for the country or vision. But we need to have a plan that the same people using the resources available to them, elected officers, to be able to take us to long-term development. And you know that given our previous experiences as a country, once a government is changed, the new government want to start all over again. You know, there's always a problem of continuity.
Yeah.
When you have to look at our own cultural behavioral pattern over the years, you will agree with me that if a government is lucky to be re-elected for the second term, it is easier for such elected officer to continue or to complete what has been planned. So, like I said, if you know, as you know, short-term development covers between 1 and 2 years. Medium-term development covers about maybe about 5 years. Long-term development from like 5, 10, 15, and all that. So at least, and if you look at capital development, most often they are not usually completed. Capital development are not usually, or infrastructure projects are not usually completed within 2 years or 3 years. Look at the issue of the road project, the coastal road project that is initiated now by our current president. It's a project that may last like 8 years. So if you decide that, and I hope that this current president will perform to earn the second return, like a second mandate after 2027 from us, the citizen Nigerians, so that he can continue what he has started. And the whole fruit of development and improving standard of living for our own and future generations can be achieved.
Given the major economic reforms, you know, like subsidy removal, currency flotation, you know, the president said subsidy has actually come to stay because so many people have, you know, pleaded and have shown concern about how much hardship the removal of fuel subsidy has actually caused. And the president was actually asked in the media chat, you know, about subsidy removal, and he said it has come to stay, so there's no turning back on that. Are these policies the right approach to improving Nigeria's long-term economic outlook?
A very good question again from you, as always. You know, policies and reforms that have long-term advantages can be very harsh on the people. And that is exactly what I believe we are currently going through as a country. But are they necessary? Yes. In fact, they are overdue in order to bring the right economic development to our country. What we have been doing over the years, if I must put it simply, is like patching our economic growth, or we're just trying to, you know, solve a problem from the top without removing the root cause. And I think that's what this economic philosophy and reform of the current president is are trying to achieve. You know, to uproot the causes of what has caused our stunted economic growth over the years. I hope that this has been done in the last 1 or 2 decades. Maybe we won't be here by now. For instance, look at the issue of energy, power generation, power transmission and distribution. If there has been enough expenditure in that direction over the past 20 years since our return to democracy, the level of our power, electricity generation today will not be what we'll be talking about. So most of what we should have done in the past are what the president is trying to correct. There will be initial pains, but I must also ask our president to provide a cushioning effect directly to the various sectors of our society. You know, targeting the very poor, targeting even the middle class, and all of us targeting.
Speaking of some sectors, you touched a bit on petroleum, you know, and yes, petroleum imports and all that. How realistic do you think Nigeria's target of reducing petroleum imports and increasing the export of finished products is? Are there challenges that could hinder this? And do you think that Nigeria's refineries, you know, even with the Dangote refinery and, you know, some that have been rumored to have come online, some that are rumored that will will come online come 2025. Do you think that, our refineries will be ready for such an ambitious goal come 2025?
Yeah, I think if we look at what has happened to us this year in terms of our economic evaluation or performance, it's a mixed bag. One of the high points for our economic development this year by our president or the administration is coming on stream of locally refined petroleum by Dangote. I mean, locally refined petroleum product by Dangote group. So that is very good. So now in Nigeria, we now have our crude being locally refined, which will eliminate high importation of these materials and taking our hard currency and depleting our reserve. I believe this should continue. I am also aware that a lot of work has already gone into letting our government NNPC refineries to come back on stream. Of course, we know that the Port Harcourt one has been confirmed to be effective. So I'm expecting that of Warri and the other one also in Port Harcourt. So these should be the goals. The goal of government should be to totally stop importation. I mean, importation of refined products. We don't need to import. We don't need to import any refined products because we have our crude oil here. I mean, in abundance. So I believe it is possible, it is achievable, but we need the political will, and the president also should make sure that NNPC completes the remaining refinery early next year. I'm thinking that it should not pass the second quarter of next year. The aggregate of all this is that it will reduce inflation from 34% that we have now to that 15% that the president is talking about. The food inflation can also reduce from 40% to about less than 20%. That means a bag of rice, which is currently about 100,000 naira now, can come down to less than 25 to 30,000. Those are the things that our citizens want to see. Why people don't believe in budget is that when it looks as if it's not positively impacting on the life of our people. Yeah. So, and when we stop importation and we do more of exportation of this refined product, both from the government-owned refinery and also from the private refinery, I believe we will achieve more progress in this direction. Right. I'm also aware that Bua refinery is also likely to be completed in the next few years, or maybe as from next year, they can also start
we'll definitely wait to see how it goes. Now, the most important thing is, like you have said, if it affects the people positively and directly. And we'll just wait to see how much this 2025 budget would actually affect them. Thank you so much, Dr. Taofiq Raimi, for your insight on this issue, policy analyst from Abuja.